So confidence is about exploring strengths and weaknesses. So you need to pick a topic, maybe your relationship or your career or your health or your social life, something that you want to set a confidence goal in. You need to then break that down into journey goals and then pick a specific journey goal that you want to turn into a small action step. Now, J. Abraham says most people, when they've got confidence issues, tend to say, am I worthy of this goal? He suggests you turn that around and say, is this goal worthy of me? Is it worthy of the time and the effort and the energy and maybe the money that I'm going to be investing in this? Can you see how easy it is to start asking better and more powerful questions in order to help you to develop and build your confidence? And actually, there's nothing to stop you being confident right now. With the tips that we're going to share with you in a short while, you can step into confidence really quickly. However, if you want to maintain it, you need to practice it regularly and often. There's no magic in this, unfortunately. It's going to take some work. But if you just accept it and admit that at the beginning, practice some little bits and pieces, you'll find it easier and easier every day to start to feel more confident. So before I do move into my tips, I just want to share with you a story of my own, based quite a few years ago when I wasn't very confident, and how I moved forward into a more confident state. I want to ask you to remember being at school. Do you remember a classroom set up? When I went to school, there were 40 children in a class. They had wooden desks, and we had those lids so that you could leave your books in overnight. We were set up in rows. There'd be 3 rows going all the way back. And there'd be the teacher's desk at the front, which was big and strong and wooden, and a bigger chair, because of course we were only little. By the time my children went to school, there were Formica desks with those little thin legs and nowhere to put your books. And the classroom setup tended to be more in square formation. By the time I moved into adult education as a teacher in my early 30s, tables and chairs had been taken away. Now everything was in a horseshoe. Can you picture that? So there's a horseshoe and the teacher or lecturer sits as part of the group. So things changed and it became more friendly. I can picture the classroom I taught in. It had white walls. It was a big old Victorian building and it had those sash windows, big and heavy. It was in need of some tender, loving care, but you know, it felt friendly and warm. Now the reason I'm telling you this is because I absolutely loved my job as a teacher. But as you know, I moved on to find out about coaching, which I loved just as much. And when I came to coaching, I set myself some goals. The first one was to pass my qualification. The second one was to become a coaching academy trainer. Now I have to tell you, that second one, I had no idea that could ever really happen. But you know what? Doing Be Do Have, I thought, why not? I'd really like to do this. So when eventually a newsletter came out from the Coaching Academy quite a few years ago saying they were looking for trainers, I thought, I can't believe this. This is my opportunity to actually fulfill one of the goals I've set a few years beforehand. But the problem was, I was all bravado. Sure, I wanted the goal, but I didn't really believe I'd get it or that I could do it. But regardless of that, because of the coaching I'd had, I thought, why not try? What have I got to lose? So I went forward and I had to go for an audition. That was really scary, but I won't even touch that now. That's another story, another time. But I went for the audition and I was really fortunate that I was one of 3 people who were selected to become a new trainee trainer. Okay, I want you to picture this. They tell me I've got this opportunity. I'm going to be one of the trainers. I'm both petrified and excited all at the same time, because now I've actually got to do something about stepping out in front of lots of people. The most I ever taught in a classroom was 16 people in a nice, cosy horseshoe. They now tell me my first training that I'm going to be offering is going to be at the Excel Centre. Imagine that. It's big and new and shiny, and it's professional and it's busy, and the room is huge and the walls are grey and there's going to be 120 people watching me delivering my first presentation. I hope you can step into some of the fear that I was experiencing back then. And thinking about it actually made me shake. But I remembered I really wanted this goal. So I thought to myself, what would I have to do in order to be confident enough to go stand in front of all those people and talk to them for 3.5 hours? I was still scared, by the way, asking myself this question. But I wrote down what I needed. Now, I don't know what your strategy would be for this, but for me, I needed to be sure I knew enough about the topic I was delivering. That was the first thing for me. The second thing was I needed to create some bullet points so that I had some topic within the topic that I could talk about. That then allowed me to write what I'd call like a script so that I could get my thoughts down on paper. I'm lucky, I quite like writing things down on paper. After that, I'd be able to create a PowerPoint presentation. And then, and only then, I'd be able to rehearse and practice it. Now, I decided I wasn't going to rehearse in front of anybody else. That just wasn't my style. I know some people like to do that. But what I was going to do is record myself. And I have to tell you, I hated seeing myself back on video. But I did it so that I could see what was my body language like, how was I standing, how did I sound, and what was I saying. That was the easy bit. After I did all of that, rather than thinking, hey, it's going to be okay, my mind chatter kicked in and it went, but what if you forget everything? What if nobody turns up? What if the equipment doesn't work? What if people don't like you? What if they all talk and don't listen to you? What if, what if, what if? Now, do you see how I could have talked myself out of that? I want to give you a tip prior to all the other tips, that if nothing else, if you use nothing else, use this one if you've got to do something that's big, because this was my saving grace. Instead of keeping all that stuff in my head, I wrote down every single fear. What might go wrong? What could go wrong? Now, Susan Jeffers used to say 99% of what we worry about doesn't happen. Well, as you'll see in a short while, that wasn't true for me. So I wrote down all the things that could go wrong, and this is the question I asked myself. If that happens, what will I do? And then I wrote down my answers. Now, I'm feeling better. Anyway, the weeks go by, and suddenly it's the big day. It's a Sunday morning, the sun is shining, I know exactly what I'm going to wear. That's important, by the way, in terms of confidence. I've got a cream trouser suit on. I spent time on my hair. I make sure I'm happy with how I look. I'm not shaking too much, but I'm shaking just enough that my lovely husband drives me into Excel, because I can't dare drive myself, and I'm too frightened to go all dressed up in this cream suit on a Sunday morning in on the tube. So he takes me in, and I decide I'm going to get in there really early, because you see, what I want to do is I want to make sure everything is right. I want to make sure the room is set up the way I want it. I want to picture the room so that I can feel stronger about what I'm going to be doing and saying. I want to make sure the equipment's right and the lighting's right, within my control, because sometimes these things aren't in your control. I want to watch the room fill up rather than turn around or walk in and see it full of 120 pairs of eyes looking at me. So I get in there and I start to check everything. There's people helping and they're doing all their bit, and the chairs are all laid out, and there's 2 rows and they go back a long way. Obviously there's about 5 or 6 in each row going back a long way. And there's some light in the room, which is good. There's one window, so there's a little bit of natural light, which I do prefer. But again, we don't have control over these things sometimes. And back then, the Coaching Academy used to provide you with a laptop. So I didn't bring my own, I'm to use theirs, but I've got my other stuff. So I unpack my stuff, I open up their laptop, I plug it in, and the screen comes on. Relief, at least that's working. I then plug in the projector, and the picture comes to life on the projector screen. So again, that's one of my fears that seems to not be happening. That's great, that's going okay. I then open up the PowerPoint presentation, and while that's loading, I get on and do some other bits. Now, I don't know if you can imagine how fast the time goes when A, you're nervous, and B, something big is going to be happening soon. So the time just rolls by. I've given myself an hour and a half and it's ticking by really quickly. I look around and think, okay, PowerPoint presentation is up. Oh, it started right at the end. I'm like, how can that be? I've got 25 slides and I can only make slide 24 and slide 25 work. So at this time, all those years ago, I am computer illiterate. So I go and ask someone to help me and they're like, yeah, we'll be fine, we'll be able to help you. But of course, it's a Sunday. There are no technicians, there are no computer experts there. There's just staff who know how to use a laptop. And so each one of them starts to try to fiddle and to mess around with to get my slides to start from number 1. But no one can do it. And I start to panic. There's about 5 or 10 minutes before I'm due to be introduced. And I suddenly go, what did you say you'd do if the PowerPoint or the presentation didn't work? I took a deep breath and I said, I'll do it without. So I said to these lovely people, don't worry, it's okay. There isn't time to do this now. I've only got 5 minutes. I'm going to do it without. And they said, are you sure? And I said, I've got no choice. So they said, okay, fine. So now I'm feeling calm because I've made a decision. It's going to happen. The room is full. The person who's about to introduce me is saying what's going on. I'm saying it won't work. I'm going to do it without. He's not excited or ecstatic about that, but he accepts that this is what's going to happen. Because I'm in this calm state, I say, do you know what? I'll just give it a go myself. I went into slideshow. Never done this before. I saw the slideshow tab. I clicked on it. I can't even remember the one that came up, but it was something about like look at slideshow or set slideshow. There's another tab there. I'll go look it up afterwards. I clicked on it and it gave me this screen of configurations and it said starts at 24, ends at 25. I almost laughed. I put in starts at 1, ends at 25 and it worked. And I'm telling you that because I was calm, so I was able to think outside the box, but I was willing to do it without it. Now, I've got a minute to go. PowerPoint presentation's working. I'm happy. I'm feeling comfortable again. I'm feeling confident again. And someone says to me, by the way, we forgot to tell you, you're being assessed today. The assessors are in the back, and depending on their feedback means you may or may not be used again. I didn't know that could happen. I was absolutely devastated. I had not prepared for that. I didn't know that you could be assessed at all, never mind on your very first delivery. And I went into panic. I was introduced. I opened my mouth. I forgot every single thing I wanted to say. I started to shake. My mouth went dry. I looked at all these people looking back at me, could see the assessors at the back, thinking, oh God, what have I done? And then the other voice kicked in and went, what did you say you'd do if you forgot your lines? And I went, I'd laugh. I'd say, do you know what I really wanted to tell you? And then I'd start over. And that's exactly what I did. I laughed. I said to them, now, ignore what I was saying. This is what I really want to tell you. And I started from the beginning. I got really good feedback at the end of that day. Only one of my colleagues said to me, what was that first bit about? I had no idea what you were talking about. And I told her and she said, well, you covered that well. I left that day walking on air. I went outside and my husband was waiting for me there. And he said, how did it go? And I said, fantastic. And I'm never, ever doing that again. Of course, I did change my mind because I'm still here some years later. Now, I really hope that that might help you to understand that confidence takes a little bit of planning. It takes a little bit of practice, and preparation is essential if you want to overcome what might go wrong. So you can call on it if it does.